Greetings, this is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll look at a film or two, beginning with The Curse of the Jade Scorpion. This is a film which was written and directed by Woody Allen. The photography was under the direction of one Xiao Fei. The stars of the film, of course, Woody Allen is one C.W. Bridges, as in Cedar Bridge. We have Helen Hunt as one P.J. Fitzgerald. We have Charlize Theron as one Laura Kensington, and Dan Aykroyd as Mr. Carruthers, the boss. Now, this particular film is, although handicapped by the antique-looking Woody Allen as its lead, nevertheless is a pretty effective spoof of the enjoyable 30s and 40s private eye genre film. We thought the lighting was pretty good in calling to mind this kind of film. Sometimes the pate, the crown of the heads is too bright, almost white looking, but generally speaking it's pretty effective. We think the set designs and the costume wardrobes are also credible. We think the girls did well, that is Hunt and Theron. Dan Aykroyd is very limited in his acting range, but he looked the part and was not really called upon to emote too seriously here. So that leaves us with Woody Allen, who looked sort of like something that you might want to roll up a newspaper and swat. I don't think it's a good idea at all for leads in films to be really senior citizens, and I think that directors and producers who make such films make a mistake, that the needs of the senior citizens, the older people in regard to films can be adequately met by supporting roles. I believe that the fine Irish poet William Butler Yeats penned the line, "Who would have supposed the heart grows cold?" And I think he must have penned that in a bitter moment, but at any rate, I think it's true that older people don't think of themselves as older. In their mind, the mind stays pretty constant, therefore, when an older person is in a film, in the dark, watching a movie, he or she is much more likely to empathize with the primetime actor or the younger actor than with the older ones. It's just sort of natural. It's a mind thing. Young folks might not want to understand it, but it's, I think, pretty much true. And that even though the mirror may confirm that these people are in fact senior citizens, they do not in their mind see themselves this way. It has to be kind of forced on them. I remember my mother getting out of the bathtub or shower and saying how she saw herself in the mirror and said, "Can that be me?" You know, it was, "Can that old body be mine?" There's a sense of betrayal, but the mind stays young, more or less. And that should be remembered by producers and directors when they make film. The over-the-hill crowd can do quite well in supporting roles, as the outstanding Jon Voight has shown. Now, this particular film opens up in the 40s. It's in New York City. It opens up to in an office which is bustling. We see the quirky, bespectacled, antique Woody Allen kvetching and quipping. His office is being molested from his point of view. His files are being removed to be put in a central file room. The person who has ordered this to be done is the new efficiency expert one, P.J. Fitzgerald, played by Helen Hunt, a graduate from Harvard or Vassar, an Ivy League school of this type. Woody Allen just does not like this at all, so he goes to confront her about this, you know, and plead that his office be unmolested. He's a top investigator for the insurance company Northern Coastal. He thinks that he has earned a certain prerogative here, and the unmolesting of his office should be at least one of those. But in meeting Helen Hunt's P.J. Fitzgerald, he meets somebody who does not see things the way he does. She was hired to save the company money to make it more efficient, and that's just what she plans to do. She and Woody Allen trade quips, nasty quips, and it leaves Woody to go off kvetching. Helen Hunt more or less tells Woody Allen's character, "You don't like it, see the boss." Well, little does Woody Allen's character know, but Helen Hunt's character and Dan Aykroyd's are having an adulterous relationship. Dan Aykroyd is married. He's making promises to P.J. Fitzgerald along the lines that he's going to seek a divorce from his wife and marry P.J. Well, also in this clash between C.W. Bridges and P.J. Fitzgerald, we are supposed to infer some sort of culture clash here. The C.W. Bridges is allegedly a street smart dude, tough street smart dude, and P.J. Fitzgerald is a kind of a snooty, cool Ivy League type, efficiency type. So there you have it. Woody has been, for the time being, bested. He's licking his wounds. There's going to be a party that night for one of the guys. I don't recall if he's getting married or going to a better job or what. But at any rate, retiring perhaps. Anyway, he is going to be feted at a club. One of the locals is a amateur magician, and he is probably the one who engineered the club selection. Woody is invited, C.W. Bridges. P.J. Fitzgerald is also going to be there along with Mr. Carruthers. Now, we do get a number of scenes in this film where Aykroyd and Hunt are together, kind of trying to make this romance incredible, and Aykroyd is telling her in so many words that when we're together and we cannot exhibit lust and lewdness and whatnot, let's use a code word, Paris, by which we can let each other know that we're having these thoughts. Well, anyway, that's the script, folks. They do meet at this club. They're having a great time knocking down some booze and whatnot. The club has as its entertainer a magician, illusionist, hypnotist named Eli Voltan Pogar. He is helped by a couple of fair damsels, and he's putting on a good show. People are entertained and so forth. He finally decides he wants to have what he calls, what might be called an audience participation. We've seen this many times on TV and so forth. A couple from the audience are brought forward, and he is going to hypnotize these two. Woody and Helen Hunt are pushed forward to be the victims, as it were. They go toward the magician, each saying, well, I'm really not a very good choice. I'm not somebody who could be hypnotized very easily. You could really do better than me. They get there. The magician is unfolding a story, a legend in regard to the Jade scorpion, a device he means to use to put these two into a hypnotic state. He does this really quickly and puts the lie into their throat in regard to their susceptibility. For gags, he tells these two that they're passionately in love. He uses for Woody the code word Casablanca, and for Helen Hunt, Istanbul, to put them into the hypnotic state. Why these two words, I'm not sure. Of course, Istanbul was once Constantinople. Well, it's nobody's business but the magicians. So he does go ahead and do this. They have good laughs. He brings them out, telling them they remember nothing. They go back to their table professing apologies that they could not go under, but they had warned the magician. It's not until they got back to the table that they fully realized that they had in fact been under, and the nature of the joke and so forth, which seemed pretty incredible and very risible to the crowd there, knowing how these two had been butting heads. Well, the next day things continue along in a rather pedestrian way at the office. Woody Allen is quipping and kvetching, and Aykroyd and Hunt grabbing stealthy moments. This goes into the eve. We find Woody in bed in his abode. The phone rings. He answers. He hears the words Casablanca. There's a cut to the figure of the magician. We know exactly who's behind this. Woody Allen is brought immediately into a state, a trance-like state that's really hyperbole, I think. It is something that you would probably expect to see if you were watching the Three Stooges do a similar kind of routine, but you would expect Woody Allen to be a little bit less obvious, but still, he goes through in this very obvious sleepwalking deal. He's told exactly how to go about a jewelry heist. It should be no problem because the victim has been insured by Woody Allen's company, Northern Coastal, and he, as C.W. Bridges, has arranged the security. So it's an easy knock for him. He gets through it, grabs the jewels. He leaves a bundle of jewels, as I recall, in a locker, such as found in a train station or bus station. Goes on home, goes to sleep, wakes up, he remembers nothing. He goes to the office. There's a lot of to do. After all, this is the client of Northern Coastal. He is the #1 investigator. Better get to it. He is feeling a little heat because Helen Hunt's character has threatened to get rid of his office altogether and to contract out the private investigation. She even has a couple of people in mind. C.W. Bridges knows these two and begins immediately to denigrate them. He goes on over to the heist site, and the police are there and whatnot. They find little in the way of sure evidence, but they do seem to think it's an inside job. And already there's some, I thought that maybe Woody, maybe C.W. is involved here. He's aghast. He's going to get really on this. There's in the back of his head perhaps the thought of a pink slip forming. He goes home. The same thing happens again. He's in bed. He gets the phone call, Casablanca. He's out. He goes upon the advice of the magician to another house, the Kensington house. Again, one insured by Northern Coastal and one whose security has been set up by C.W. Bridges. Piece of cake. So he gets the jewels. This time he leaves them in his abode, I believe. But at any rate, he goes to sleep, wakes up, remembers nothing. He goes to the office the next day, and there's really a lot of tumult. There's a great deal of feeling that CW is not up to the task. Already the two private investigators have been brought in. Woody rushes over to the locale, the Kensingtons, and there he starts his investigation. He goes inside and he meets the idle rich Laura Kensington, who apparently has lewd designs on C.W. Bridges. Now, C.W. Bridges at one point in his life was married, but it didn't work out. He apparently has the rep of abusing women. Judging from him, it may be the other way around. He looks like he's down to his last kaboom. Anyway, Laura Kensington is interested, and this highly improbable scene turns out to be perhaps the best spoof in the film. And of course, Theron is one of the few Hollywood women who's really good looking. And she's quite effective as the vamp. Well, there are clues in this heist that suggest C.W. may have been the perpetrator. Inside job and these clues and so forth. Well, he is certainly feeling the heat. He also has the occasion to go over to P.J. Fitzgerald's abode. She has just gotten the news from Aykroyd that he can't get the divorce anyhow. She feels used. What to do? Booze. Well, she gets plowed, and she gets to threatening to jump out the window even. Woody's there. He kind of prevents her from doing that. She kind of comes on to him a little bit before passing out on the sofa. Woody decides that he better stick around and make sure that she doesn't wake up and jump out the window. When she does wake up in the morning, she's aghast to find him there, but when she finds out a little bit why he's there, she gets kind of a notion a little bit more friendly. You're supposed to infer that in the back of her head she's saying, well, maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. This is the first sort of turn in his direction. Also, he is a potential as a rebound romantic object. So there you go. These two are getting a little closer, and he is beginning to seem more credible to her. But this is not the case with the police. They arrest him, and he's taken out. But before this, of course, he knew what was happening, so he had gone on the lam. It's that same business, bad boys, what you going to do when they come for you? And Woody's answer was, run for it. But they got him, and they took him to jail, and so he's chilling out. Aykroyd, Mr. Carruthers, is astounded that his trusted man, C.W. Bridges, would do this and so forth. But it does look pretty much like he did it. Now, that night, the situation is that the magician has lost the rabbit he's been pulling out of his hat. What to do when you lose your first rabbit? Well, maybe you go to your hat and pull out a bunny. So the phone rings at the P.J. Fitzgerald abode. She answers and hears Istanbul. Immediately she goes into a trance. Again, the magician describes how to go about a heist. She pulls it off. She has to go to the office first and look through C.W. Bridges' security manual and so forth. But she goes because, once again, it's insured by Northern Coastal. Exactly how it came to be that Northern Coastals were picked on by the magician 3 times in a row is a little bit odd, to say the least. But at any rate, she pulls it off, so since the police and Northern Coastal kind of think that this is a serial mastermind jewelry heist type deal, it takes the heat off Woody here. In fact, he's let loose. He goes to the office. He's sort of slapped on the back by his chums and so forth. One of them, the amateur magician, mentions the word Casablanca, and immediately Woody goes into a trance. Well, now, he suddenly, bingo, understands what is the problem here with C.W. He brings him out and tells him what had just happened. So then Bridges says, oh, it's the old hypnotize and then Faginize them scheme. Well, he goes and lets the police know. They arrest Eli Voltan Pulgar in pretty short order. The faker is nabbed, and I think that he may even have confessed, or certainly he was caught with incriminating evidence. Furthermore, well, there is an epilogue here. it seems that C.W. Bridges and P.J. Fitzgerald both are going to leave Northern Coastal. The assumption is that C.W. Bridges basically has gotten a certain distaste in his mouth. The treatment he received there, the accusations, and so forth. And also, it may be that P.J. Fitzgerald is no longer in her mind able to work for this boss Aykroyd with whom she had an adulterous relationship. And then he pulled that I can't get a divorce after all scam and so forth. She feels in the back of her mind used, so they can't possibly stay, I guess. But however, or for whatever rationale, they do seem to be leaving, and they seem to be with the notion of teaming up. There is a notion here that the Helen Hunt character is still under a hypnotic trance because she is playing up to Woody big time. She is accepting his wooing and acting as if as she had been when she was in a trance. But Woody is determined that he's not going to bring her out. The old dog is going to perhaps throw a log on the hearth before doing that. But it's all legit because she's faking. She's not in a hypnotic state. Woody has won her heart legitimately, and so they're going to be an item. Well, it looks like the moral of the story may be something like it's never too late, I guess. But at any rate, off they go. Folks, let's just pause a moment here and get some input from a fan.
Thanks, John. I needed that.
Well, that's it, folks. That's a wrap. That's all the time we have. This is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. I appreciate your tuning in and hope to see you again next time.